Hi, everyone. This is Norman Kochnick here for the show, or actual platform, I should say, Eyes on Cricket with Norman Kochnick. Now, yet again, I've been blessed with some incredible guests. I call them now part of the family. We've had some amazing people, but I've got the likes now of David Graveney here today, the former chairman of the English cricket, and one of his selectees. Is that the term, selectee? If you're a person who's been selected.
Guesswork. No one guesswork.
Guesswork. Did you cover your eyes and go like that on a piece of paper?
That's how I ended up getting it,
And that, of course,
actually,
is Adam Hollier.
He is one of the few people I've actually sledged on a field, actually. They actually pointed that out to me. So.
That's right, yeah.
How did that happen?
We were getting slaughtered at Durham University.
I'm sure I would have done something.
Adam hit me to long off, not particularly hard. So as he ran past me, I said to him a few expletives. Is that as hard as you can hit it? Not the right thing to say to somebody who can hit out of the ground at will, which happened the next few balls later. So. But that game on, we had 4 people in the ring because this is when Durham first became a first-class county, and the aggregate ages of the 4 people in the ring exceeded 160 years.
Oh my God!
Was that Beefy played in that game, didn't he?
Yeah, Beefy, Wayne Larkins, me, and there must have been somebody else.
That was my debut. Greg.
That was it. Oh, right.
Yeah, my as in.
You were worth sledging off. It was your debut. Then.
So anyway, of course, when you say beefy, you mean Ian Botham, don't you?
That's right. Yeah.
Sorry, Norman. What did you say?
When you say beefy, you mean Ian Botham.
Sorry, Ian. Sorry, yeah. Sorry.
No, that's all right. I mean, it's good for us to know the nicknames. Because obviously, Adam's called Smokey, aren't you?
That's right. Yeah. Smokey. Yeah. But Beefy was. Remember my first game? I turned up there and you got people like Beefy and Grab and I'm trying to think who else played in that game. I mean, they were the ones who stuck out. It's quite. I was just
Wayne Larkins played.
Wayne Larkins, he was playing. It was so. I watched all these guys on TV all my life, so it was quite intimidating. I wasn't easily intimidated, but it was one of the few times where I was a bit in awe of the people I was up against. So, long time ago, mate. Long time ago.
It was
in '93.
It's funny. Chris Vernon said that he was too busy because of some other appointment, but he's actually just put a message on there. And his girlfriend, Nalakshi Sharma, who's his Indian admirer, has also made a comment asking why Chris Vernon is not participating today. But we'll explain that a bit later.
He's a charmer, that Chris. Even when he's not on the show, he's the most popular person on here.
Absolutely.
He wasn't very happy the last time I was on. He's suddenly become a wicket inspector.
A wicket? Oh, I know. Yeah, he loves talking about the wickets.
That's one topic we're not going to talk about tonight. 2 taboo areas. One is definitely about the wickets because, quite frankly, as we've all talked about, both teams have to play on the same pitch, so to hell with it. But rotations we might talk about. But I coined the phrase retrospective, so we'll look back over the series, and a form of introspective. We're looking as to the way that England are concerned about. There's a lot of words being used that they've crumbled, that they're mentally fatigued. A whole list of names or litany of names where they've commented about their mental state, which is intriguing. Both the English press, the Indian press, and even the Australian press has talked about that. So we'll talk about that a bit later as well. But David and Adam, I wanted to start by a bit of reminiscing between you two. This is what I was particularly looking forward to. You had a bit of a reminisce before we started today. Tell us a bit about your relationship.
Well, I tended to, a lot of people that I ended up selecting tended to make their debut against me for some apparent reason. So first of all, there's a bit of an age difference. So I would have started to end my career when Adam was starting his. So such as a reference to, we had, I think 7, they were called the Magnificent 7, playing for Durham when they were first formed, which was a great honour to be, the newest county. So we had 7 guys who were over 35 and then 4 blokes who were under 18. So in our team, there was a bit of a rush to field slip and not a rush to field cover, because there was only actually 4 candidates for that position. So, and it was a rather unique team, so very nomadic. We played on various games in the northeast. So yeah, it was a real great experience, and that's when I played against Adam for the first time. And I knew of Adam because actually Ben had actually gone to my old school, albeit briefly. And you watch the 2 boys play, and they're obviously really talented players. And then, and I've said to you often, well, I've certainly said to Smokey often, for me to be able to play and then stay in the game and end up being a selector, it was just a fantastic journey, really. So to be able to award caps to people that you know and admire and whatever, is because everybody who select for England is going to be in that category. The vast majority are. It's just a great experience to have, but it has a downside because there'll be a time when it has to be the other way around, when you have to make that painful phone call to say you're not selected. And we're all human beings, we're not machines. And each time you do that, that takes a bit of a chunk out of you. So I'm fortunate that hopefully I behave. And the one thing I tried to avoid at any cost was that people didn't learn then the non-selection from another channel. It had to come from me. And Smokey was fine. I've had some interesting phone calls from people who I didn't know I did, for instance, didn't know that Graham Pick knew as many swear words as he did, that he managed to put in about 15 seconds.
Graham Pick.
Yeah. And
Really?
then other guys, some guys didn't speak to me for a couple of years, actually. So, and about Graham, I get on with him really well. He's played for Worcester. My uncle played for Worcester. So, yeah, it was a fantastic honour to do that. And then, as a result of that, to have friendships that have lasted for as long as they have, which is in
Who selected you?
Selected me.
To be, I'm talking about to be a selector.
Oh, selector. I went. Well, I was a selector, not chairman of selectors, immediately after we finished playing. That the ECB in their Test and County Cricket Board in their wisdom decided to try and have somebody younger, in inverted commas, as a selector. So, and I worked and continue to work for the Professional Cricketers Association, which is the Players' Union. So therefore, I was always going to go to grounds to do that work anyway. So I was going to see a lot of cricket. So that's how it transpired, really, more than anything else. So, I changed a few things. Even before Adam got selected, that they used to have this tradition of everybody going and having a huge meal the night before with all the selectors and chairman of the counties where the game was being played. And the new caps used to have to sit next to the chairman selectors, which seems, well, you can take a view on that. Archaic would be one of them. Whereas actually the players, all they wanted to do was to be in their own rooms, relaxing, preparing themselves, which would have been, as a debutant, the biggest day of their lives in a cricketing sense. So we changed a few things. I was fortunate enough to be a manager of a tour to Australia in, I think, 95. In December of 95, I think, which Adam was captain of that as well. And a lot of those guys went on to play for England. And you'll be interested in this, Norman, when you see pictures of international teams, particularly England. There are probably more staff than there are players. In this little gathering that went to Australia, there were 3 members of staff: a coach, a manager, and a physio.
Wow!
All very large people. So we're obviously going to cover a few positions.
It was very large.
And I would have to say, and they're not doing it in front of me, they've all said afterwards, and it was an A trip, and it's still an honour to do it. Probably doesn't have the restrictions of a senior tour, and they all of to a man said it was the most enjoyable trip they've ever been on. We happened to win actually quite a lot, remarkably. So, but no, it was.
Who did you play against? Who did you play against on that tour?
Well, we played actually against the States teams. So I think we played against the select team to start with, and that was very effective. But then we played at Victoria, New South Wales, Brisbane, a combination of 4-day games and 1-day games. It was a fantastic experience. South Australia, and actually at that stage, South Australia, when we played there, I think Rob Marsh was in sort of working with the opposition. So yeah, he directed me, signposted me to some fine red wine, if I remember rightly. But that seemed to be one of his pastimes. But it was really good. You know, the players. It's great when you win. That's the most important thing. And for me, as a selector, because it's not a precise science, they've all went on virtually to a man to have successful international careers, which is perfect. And that is by luck, the selection. So.
Oh, it can't be. It's got to be by some element of proper selection, proper understanding, and it's not just how good a player bats, bowls, or fields or keeps. It's more also how they get along in a team. Is that a major selection component as well? Is it not just purely on ability, but on their get along ability?
I think what I learned, and this is, I'm not trying to blow my own trumpet, but somebody pointed out because I didn't have a clue. Was actually that I'm the longest serving chairman selectors since the Second World War. And I'm not sure that's such a good thing, actually. But anyway, that's how it turns to be. And I would have to say during that journey, I was tended to be, as time progressed, more driven by the quality of the person as opposed to stats. You've obviously got to be able to play. That's a given. But how people contribute in a team ethic and how they cope with pressure. It is an extraordinarily pressurized game. So it's not always how many runs you get, because you don't know the circumstances you get the runs. You don't know what the wicket was like, the strength of the bowling attacks or whatever. So, the 100 that Pant got or Washington got his runs, in the context of the game, 125 for 6 is worth far more than somebody getting 150 on the flattest wicket of all time. So, but the quality of the person that taught me a bit of a lesson of how they interject and how they led for. And this is in the public domain. We selected a guy called Mike Smith who opened the bowling for Gloucester, left arm seamer, to play against Australia at Headingley. And at that time, the England team was quite cliquey in terms of senior players and junior players and whatever. And Leeds is probably, the dressing room there is probably the most unfriendly dressing room in the whole world, because it was a rugby league dressing room.
Yeah.
And England lost, got heavily defeated. And some years down the line, and we didn't select Mike again, which is our fault. Just to select people as one-off test matches is unfair to the player, really. And he said that actually 3 guys in the team didn't speak to him for the whole game.
Right.
Such was the divisions. When I say didn't speak to him, they didn't probably engage him in a real friendly conversation, which I would have to say that was one of the things that we needed to remove. And actually, a team will always beat 11 individuals. So, and Adam was part of that.
Interesting one though, Grav. It's like you're sort of kind of taking a bit of responsibility for that there, but really I think that falls. I mean, also that you kind of came in at an era where central contracts came in. I think we were talking about in the last episode, or the last time I was on, we were definitely talking about the rotation policy, and I was saying how we wouldn't want to go back to the situation where guys were playing the day for their counties the day before test matches. But it's the same with in this situation in that you came in at a time when, as a selector, when that became apparent. The central contracts came in. That was around about the time you were in as a selector during that transitional period.
I had to introduce them, Smokey, which was difficult, really, because you were basically saying, Norman, and actually we were following Australia's lead at that stage, which is to say, actually, the core players of the international team are sort of going to be prepared, driven by the central body, whether it be ACB or ECB, which was a hard thing for the counties to understand, particularly the members. So in the period that when I first took over, in order to control workload, you'd had to go cap in hand to the counties to say, don't bowl Darren Gough that much or whatever. The fact that once you become centrally contracted, you can control those things. So you would have had a conversation about rotation. So it was a very new concept, and it was very difficult for people to get their head around. Now it's just taken as granted. It's not a major problem. And I can assure you that if you had a conversation, not including me or Adam, 5 years down the line about rotation, people will just assume that's the norm. If the volume of cricket stays the same and the amount of really unbelievable tournaments like the IPL, the Big Bash, there's going to be some serious management of players, because one thing is for sure that it's never changed is the moment your career comes to an end, that's the end. People, you're just airbrushed off any records or anything like that. And, you can't deny the people the ability to earn a living. Hopefully it doesn't devalue the desire, and, I feel this more than anybody else, but to represent your own country. You shouldn't devalue that as a thing to do. So central contracts came in, Smoke, to answer your question. That was a very long-winded answer to that, but that was at that time.
But the other side,
just quickly, we're going to talk more about the interactions you guys had, and I want to hear from Adam as well, especially the tour like that the England A tour, I should say, and how that molds you as a player and the friendships you get. I mean, you probably get it from under 19s and the 17s, whatever progress you meet guys along the way, and you often hear of a lot of the players that are playing for their country have actually been together in that manner, and that's where they truly do develop that sort of synergy together, whether it's they're bowling together in tandem or batting up the order. It's an interesting component. But we're getting a lot of comments already about, and I knew this would happen, Owen Morgan, Dawood Malan, these players are coming into the side for the ODI and T20 format. I think it's a breath of fresh air in a way, because we've talked about having, almost 30 on a tour for reasons of COVID and rotation. But I think it's important, especially when changing formats, to bring an element of fresh air to the side, like a new form of motivation, because a team can start to wane on a long tour. Would you agree?
Especially when they've just been drilled as resoundingly as they have done in the last 3 Test matches. That was a demoralising. I mean, albeit Norman, Grav, you went on here from the beginning of the series, but Norman said it was going to be 17-0 to India.
Oh, David, did you teach Adam mathematics? He seems to get more grandiose with his maths. I'm sure they came from you. You must have given him a multiplier effect of numbers of games.
But I think, obviously we were sort of pushing back and saying that England had a bit of a chance, but I even think even after England won the first test, we said probably the most likely result from there, even though England won it, would be 3-1. That was, there was a very high chance that could happen. And then I think we sort of noticed as the series went on, the grinding down of England. And I'm not sure who it was. It was one of the English players, or might have been a commentator, were talking about just how you can get, I think it was Nasser Hussain actually on Sky. He talked about they're out of batting rhythm. So when you're coming, and every time you're coming out, that there's men around the bat, there's turning pitches. You all of a sudden you've gone a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, and you haven't played a cover drive, or you haven't, you're stuck in this little, become quite stale. But I think that's Test cricket. I think the
But
T20,
that's very extreme, Smokes, now, because in olden days when my uncle played or whatever, is that you used to have games between the Test matches.
Yeah,
it was a bit of relief in order to right. I haven't got any runs. This will still be, still people want to get you out because you're playing for you're a tourist, but it just gives you a bit of relief. You just sense that people are going from game to game. The guys who aren't playing become not realistic selection options because they haven't played any cricket between the Test matches.
Yeah.
So it gets really and Test cricket. I think the last Test match showed up without dwelling on it too much. The Test cricket is an extraordinary game because at 120 for 6, India were really deep in trouble, and yet by the end of the game, the margin was as wide as it could possibly be. Yeah. So there are times when it gets, when it's still in the balance. And that is the beauty of Test match cricket, that it's swings and roundabouts.
But just to sort of back that up, Grav, as well, is isn't it ironic that, we've all played in sides that are dominating. We've all played in sides that have been dominated. Isn't it amazing when, Australia did it for so many years throughout the 90s, that when they were 5 down and you felt like you had a sniff, someone like Gilchrist would come out, and when you're used to winning, those things go your way. In India, just off the back of, the fact that they'd won those last 2 Test matches, like Grav mentioned, there was no respite in between the games. You're just going from one game. And I think one thing which we overlook, which I definitely overlooked before I started playing international cricket, was when you're playing county cricket or shield cricket or whatever, you play, Queensland plays, like for example, Queensland, we're playing Western Australia at the moment. If we get beaten, which we won't, then we'll go on and we'll play a new set of bowlers. And then the week after, you play another set of bowlers. In an international setup, when you go to somewhere like India, you're playing on turning pitches. You've got 2 spinners that are coming at you. You don't get a game in between. You've got those same 2 guys that if someone gets the wood on you, it's a long tour, because you've got that same bowler coming at you for the whole series. And when it's spin, there is literally, like, with seam bowlers, they've got a rest, but spin bowlers, if you don't get on top, and that's what happened. Those 2 spinners got into the English batting lineup, and they didn't have an answer, and it was just.
But isn't that the same, Smoking, the same in one-day cricket? If you're playing a long series against the same opposition, and the same bloke keeps getting you out all the time, or if you're a bowler, some batsman on the other side keeps smacking you into all parts, that's hard for that to get out of that rut, if anything. So.
It is hard, but I feel with, and definitely I agree with you 100% there, Gav, but I feel with one-day cricket, and don't get me wrong, my Test career was brief, and I'm not in a huge position to talk.
I'll come back to that, Norman, his Test career. You need to know facts about that, which is publicised.
But with Test cricket, it's called, like, in my Test career, for example, I had Warne and McGrath to contend with. So we have 2 Tests. It's like there's no respite from those. But if I go and play Australia in a one-day, those guys can only bowl 10 overs, and they've got the wood on someone else. So there's a chance that you only have to contend with a few overs. In Test cricket, there's nowhere to hide. There is literally nowhere to hide, and especially when you go to somewhere like India, where those spin bowlers, they can bowl the whole day. In a one-day game, Warney can only bowl 10 overs. Murali can only bowl 10 overs. But in T20, it's only 4 overs. So you can find a way of just surviving.
Defending against it. Just score off everybody else. So.
Yeah. I feel that Test cricket still remains the mentally toughest game. And I feel that the injection, England's the #1 T20 side in the world. So they'll hopefully that in itself injects a bit of positive from an English perspective, of course. But
that's exactly right. But that is a very, very relevant point. The T20 side and the ODI side, that is England, are ranked virtually #1, and they certainly play in that manner, and so do India for that matter. But England have got a lot more stature at this point in time in those formats than they may have with Tests. So that should change their mindset, certainly.
They've had a lot of success. They've got some really outstanding one-day players. and they play with a freedom that's for a side that wins more than loses. So, and the point I would make about, and Adam's right about sort of the reflections on this series and, you know, two spinners spinning wickets. I think the point of view, and this is now sounding Victorian times, even though it doesn't seem that long ago. 2005, I can remember Michael Vaughan saying and talking about the team or whatever, he had an overall objective is to try and find 11 blokes who weren't scarred by losing against Australia time and time again. So there wouldn't be that, you know, if it suddenly was going downhill, oh, here we go again type mentality, which may seem a bit harsh, but they didn't know, they weren't scarred by defeat. And actually, and I didn't quite understand what that meant, but I can understand now that actually, you know, that time when the game was in the balance, like the bit that I referred to in terms of Pant and Washington was that time. You know, they didn't know defeat. They hadn't lost against England before. This is a game in the balance. I'm going to take the game by the scruff of its neck. And you always felt that when Adam Gilchrist walked to the crease, that's what's going to happen, because whatever he did was going to happen very quickly. And suddenly that bloke coming in at number 7 just changes the course of the match. And very rapidly as well, because it normally coincides with a second new ball that flies out of the ground. But that's the way he plays, which I thought was, changes games. And I think the Australians, and this probably is coming from Shane Warne, that, you know, he must have been an incredibly difficult bloke to keep to. And I'm an exceedingly average slow bowler, but even as an average slow bowler, you remember missed stumpings and missed catches. So in terms of Shane Warne's career, I think that's quite a lot of things. But the plus point for him or for Australia is that Adam Gilchrist was just a devastating player as a batsman. Actually, Smoke, so if you remember in the one-day series, we actually found a way of getting him out, which happened to be Alan Mullally.
That's correct.
Actually,
really,
non-swinging left arm over was the perfect recipe, because he lined it up thinking it's going to swing and smash it past cover, and it just kept coming closer and closer and closer. He dragged it on, nicked it behind, did lots of things trying to get out.
Fun, wasn't he?
And he was the perfect one. But this was a series of one-day games, and after about 2 or 3, you know, Smokes would have noticed it before. There seems to be a way that we can stop him winning the game within the first 15 overs, and it worked for us in that period of time.
Well, Alan says hello to you both as well, and he's going to do some separate videos with me over the next few days about his life, which I can edit and pretty up, and it'll be great to watch. It'll be great.
Well, one should be how I mastered Adam Gilchrist.
I will definitely ask him to talk about that, having heard what you've said. And I hope you're listening, Alan, because that's one of the first things I'll be asking you. Okay, now
for the next half an hour, I'll talk you through every single wicket, Mark.
That's it.
Now, the questions we're getting there are how much does spin play a part in the ODI and T20? Which is a good question, because even though in tests they totally dominated, in the ODI format with pitches which are a lot flatter, that spinners aren't necessarily as effective. But I'm interested to hear what you think there. They're talking a lot about Washington Sundar now. One person's actually getting Washington Sundar to open and put Gill in the middle order, which is interesting because Washington Sundar is originally a batter. He was basically a batter. So it is intriguing, as well as Axel Patel, even though he's taken 30 wickets almost in his 3 test matches. He is also a batter, so they've got some intriguing positions of those players. But looking at, for a moment, Axel Patel's, they showed his stats. He took 4 or 5 fifers, 1 10-fer and a 1 9-fer. The guy had a remarkable 3 tests. Probably the best 3 tests I've seen from anyone bowling first up. Would you agree?
Well, one for me, we have similarities. That we bowl with the same hands. That's about the only similarities we have between the 2 of us. And we're actually quite tall. The one thing that he did, I think, which I always found really, really difficult to do, was to bowl with a new ball. in terms of being a shiny ball. Kookaburra was actually, as it happened, quite a good one to bowl with. So not only is he making his debut, he's having to open the bowling. He did a remarkable job, but I think that the what came through is his unrelenting accuracy. He didn't necessarily spin every single ball, but nobody does. I don't care if you're the best spinner in the world. Not every ball spins, because that just doesn't happen. So unrelenting accuracy, and also he made the ball bounce because he's tall. But I think, going back to T20, I think one feature that England have benefited from is to have Rashid playing. I think bowling leg spin with a white ball is exceedingly difficult to pick. And, he bowls top spinners and googlies with devastating effect. And Owen Morgan trusts him so much, and his record shows that when he keeps overs back right to the end, because he knows he is a serious wicket taker at all stages.
And I'm not exactly 100% certain of his stats, but I'm sure a year ago, I haven't watched that much T20 or one day in the last year or so, but up until about a year ago, 7 of the top 10 T20 bowlers in the world were fast wrist spinners with left hand or right hand who bowl into the wicket. Now, I was fortunate. I played in the first ever T20 game, and
the first ever.
Well, yeah, I don't know if there might have been one the night before, but that was the first tournament was 2003 in England, and I believe we played the first ever game, Surrey versus Middlesex at the Oval, but I might be wrong. There might have been one the night before, but at the time it didn't matter because I believe
it's around about that time. But I'll tell you about that fixture a bit later on.
I believe the format would never last. I thought it was a joke, and I said this will never last in England. I was correct. It went worldwide. But I remember as the captain of Surrey, we were trying to get the jump on the other sides, and there was some initial thinking of this tournament, and it was like spin wasn't going to play any part in it. Fielding was going to be crucial. And now, I mean, whilst fielding's important still, you would say that, it's power hitting. Spin plays a crucial role in the T20 cricket and one-day cricket now, which I mean, it's going to be hard in India as well, because India have such a plethora of spin bowling options, and they can bowl, albeit they can only bowl 4 in the T20 or 10 in the one-dayer. They have options, and you're going to get a large percentage of the overs bowled at you will be spin. So Rashid, obviously, he comes into the picture for England. He's world class. But coming back to that stat, 7 of the top 10 bowlers in the world were fast wrist spinners that bowl into the wicket. So not you'll lob it up kind of above the eye line. It was like bowl fast, spinning it into the wicket.
Top spinners, and if you can't read it, charging down the wicket, you can't do that for a start. So you're stuck on the crease.
Stuck on the crease.
Dead straight. Sweeping now is, if you miss, you're out.
Yeah,
quite right. It's not somebody not liking the shot. It used to be an old-fashioned way of doing it, but you there's a lot more LBWs, which was shown in the Test series actually, which is quite right. So leg spin, you could easily see somebody sides having 3 spinners with 1 opening the bowling. So you've basically got spin all the way through.
And that fellow called Chahal for India as well, they're talking about him in the commentary, that he's meant to be coming back into contention, because he's been very effective at the T20 level, especially even in the IPL. That's a great hunting ground for these guys. They're going to have a lot of players in that mode as well. So they're very fortunate, India.
Well, what stands against the Norman is which I'm not sure I necessarily agree with it, is having a brand new ball from either end. Because what that does negate is the skilled seamer who bowls at the end of a one-day game and being able to reverse swing it and whatever. I think it's an easier thing to manage because if you remember, but it was one ball, the umpires had the right to change it when it got discoloured, and there was always a bit of a debate about when it should be changed. But it has, I think, removed one of the skill factors that you can have at the end. But Smokey's right about the role of one of spin. I was the same. You know, I played a little bit at Taunton, which is possibly the smallest ground in the world. And actually, the best analysis was a guy who played for Gloucestershire, Martin Ball, who got like 5 for 15 because everybody was trying to launch him out the ground
into the river.
Yeah, into the river.
Well, hang on.
There was a river. There was a river running at that ground, Norman. And again, without you want a bit of reminiscing. I moved from Gloucester to Somerset, and I didn't realise. And it's a bit like Smokey, sort of. I don't know what are the rivalries in terms of Australian states. That if you played for one, you wouldn't play for somebody else.
Queensland and New South Wales.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
Queensland, New South Wales. Well, Australia's a huge place. This is Gloucestershire and Somerset, which is about 40 miles. And I didn't realise when I moved from Gloucester to Somerset, I was the first person ever to make that move. So that was controversy to start with. And the ground, as Smokers referred to, was a river at one end and a graveyard at the other end. So after about 2 months, I had a bit of success. We weren't very good and whatever. And then the chief executive came up to me and he said, David, I don't, and whether you realise that actually your move is pretty controversial, but I hope you're enjoying it or whatever. It's fine, yeah, it's not a problem. Can you do me a favour? You like to bowl from the river end, which I know is about a yard longer than the other end. However, every time the ball goes into the river, it's costing us 70 quid. If you could possibly bowl from the other end, we've got half a chance of getting it back from the graveyard. So let's change ends.
Good confidence, vote of confidence from the CEO.
Yeah.
So, at this point in time, prior to the actual games themselves against India, we've talked about, I think there is some, one is, I think it's 5, there's 5 ODIs, and there were 3 T20s, and the predictions are that the ODIs will go India's way. Sorry, the ODIs will go England's way, and the T20s will go India's way. What's your perspective on that? Or what do you see as the case there?
Well, I think England, Adams alluded to it, that, England are a strong team. So
in the ODI format in particular?
I think in both formats. Okay. I think they're really good. I think that they've proven that no limit on scores. They've set some extraordinary records for the runs they've got. So I would say it would be pretty close, but the momentum is the thing. And also, let's draw a conclusion from, let's say, we're playing at Chennai on something that might be responding to spin, as opposed to Mohali, which possibly doesn't, which is very much a seam-based thing. You would necessarily say that England may be favourites to win in Mohali, but one thing I have noticed is actually the conveyor belt of seam bowling that actually India are now producing. Some really outstanding seamers, which they never used to have in the past. So
it's actually that's part of the reason for their ascension. They've always had good spinners, haven't they? Ever since time began, they've always had incredible batsmen. If you were to say one thing, they'd struggle to win overseas because of their lack of fast bowlers. But now it's not. We knew, the big 3, Bumrah, Ishant Sharma. So they had the 2 world class one, then Shami, and then now they seem to have this conveyor belt. It's like, where does it end? There's guys coming out who I hadn't even heard of, who coming in and they're bowling, high 130s, and it's like they've got this conveyor belt of. I know cricket's a huge game and they've got a massive population in India, but they just, other than Kapil Dev, they haven't really had a massive success in the seam bowling department over, Javagal
Srinath probably.
Yeah, Srinath and Kapil Dev. I mean,
Yeah.
but nothing like like.
Bumrah,
England,
he's
West
serious.
Indies.
He's modelled himself on you, Smokes, Bumrah, with the variation of pace. Adam was one of the first bowlers playing limited overs of going up in pace, a bit like Ian Harvey. You have his standards pace, but people say, well, both slower balls. Both of them had an array of slower balls that were very difficult to pick, but they also were quite keen on actually faster, which surprised quite a lot of bowlers, batsmen. And you sense that with Bumrah, that he has a yard of pace that actually is sometimes difficult, or surprises batsmen, sometimes really difficult to read. So I would say it's a really close series. Interesting to see how, because he's been in terms of run totals during the Test matches. And they're obviously, the IPL is just around the corner, so see what happens really.
Well, I'll just quickly go through. I made a mistake. In fact, there are 5 T20s and 3 ODIs. Other way around. Yeah. So the first T20 is on the 13th of March, which is less than a week away. But all 5 of those particular T20s are played out of all places Ahmedabad, so they're not moving location-wise. Then you've got 3 matches in Pune, which is not that far away. That's all within literally just over 2 weeks. They're playing some 8 matches, which is quite a full-on schedule. And then the IPL starts on the 9th of April. I believe it's 9th of April. And that'll go through to May 30th. So it's a roll-on straight away. So it is intriguing. They are playing 5.
If you're talking about volume of cricket, the Indian player seems to have been playing forever. Just every single day wherever they're playing.
Unbelievable.
The rotation. I'd say it been really serious. Has been really interesting viewing. We haven't been on at the same time, Smokes, but I'm just saying that Norman. One of the downsides was that has been the true cricket lover has been waiting for the day that they could have free TV to watch Test match cricket on normal TV stations. And then one time they do it, they have a 2-day Test match, which probably was sad. Because, cable TV, like anywhere in the world, is a cost. And if you're retired, it may be a cost that is one step too far. So to have it on normal TV was a great occasion. It's just a shame it didn't go for longer. Is
that the same with this series, Grav? Is it the T20s and the one days on terrestrial as well?
There's over here, Smokes, and a little
Channel
bit
4.
like Australia. There's mass competition of platforms. Whether it be Sky, whether it be BT, Amazon's influence on anything is now getting greater and greater and greater. So, I think the amount of money coming into the game here will not be as great because it's a competitive marketplace. People are prepared to put it on, but they're prepared to chop it up. I think in terms, my understanding is, without studying it that much, is that the one days will be on Sky. But it was just a shame on these Test matches that. A principle that had been fought long and hard for, and then sadly ends up to being two days and not even 3 the next time round.
And a beating as well,
So they're literally going game day off, game day off. They're having literally a game every second day right throughout the T20 and then on the 50 over as well. It's quite a tight schedule. And
they might use some players there, but obviously there's no travelling, Norman. That's the thing.
That's true. It's a benefit.
Played in series where they travel from Brisbane to Sydney to wherever we were charging around Australia. So
that's true. It is a benefit there, and that's where COVID's come into play. So so they're starting with 5 T20s, and on the basis of a World Cup coming up later on this year and some October, November in the same country, it's a very significant set of days for both teams. Even though they probably play a series somewhere along the line further down against someone, both India and England, I think this is a significant test because you could be looking at, I would argue, that the finalists for both of those tournaments, which is really important. I think Australia's going to struggle. They've just been smashed by. They lost 3-2, but they were smashed by New Zealand. Did you see that? Guptill tore them apart, and even though it wasn't Warner and a few players, it's still a very downtrodden Australian side at the moment. They can't win anything properly.
Yeah, New Zealand are, tend to float under the radar and lots of things, really. And I might be deemed to be unpatriotic or whatever, but I definitely felt that New Zealand was so unlucky not to win the World Cup in this country. There were lots of twists in the game that could have easily gone the other direction. I felt, but just again, no criticism of their spin bowlers. I don't see them having somebody of the quality of Rashid, who is a real consistent performer. And I think that's they have fantastic seam bowlers. There's no doubt about that. But they're really well. I see them actually a little bit like Owen Morgan, Joe Root. Kane Williamson is a seriously impressive young man. In as far as I describe him as an old-fashioned captain. You definitely feel that he is the man in control of the team, some of them, and the way he conducted himself in the World Cup when there was obviously things that were really dead against him was fantastic. So
were you there for that? Were you actually there for that match?
No, I was actually watching a game in Somerset, an under-15 match actually, which the poor lads, little boys, they were running around playing cricket, and their parents were in the bar watching the final, which I would say is not parental support, really. So.
Well, I was fortunate enough. I was actually there for the match, and I thought it was incredible atmosphere. And the tears in the English audience were quite impressive. It was quite a lot very emotional win, to be honest with you.
No, it was. And it was fantastic. It was actually extraordinary sort of happenings all coming to conclusion at the same time. The Wimbledon final was coming to its conclusion in one room. The cricket was on in another room. So it was going from one to the other. There was, and there'd be lots of things that probably all three of us might have done slightly differently in those last few overs, but it shows that actually, everybody's under so much pressure that. But it was, for people in England to, and that was live and that was available to everybody. It was just a fantastic final. And actually, it was a really good tournament.
Oh, was it sure?
We didn't have monsoons arriving all the time, so no, it was good.
Better than
Adam, what do you miss? What do you miss of that cricket?
Yeah, I'm just trying to dismiss that. Actually, I would have to say, Smokes, actually, we did win more than we lost in our group,
Yeah, it wasn't as bad as people make it out, but it definitely wasn't the World Cup that they had.
But I think you and I can say, and then this is 20 odd years since that time, the importance of team spirit and everybody being on the same page was highlighted by that tournament.
Yeah, possibly, yeah.
And that's about as much as we'll say, Smokes, on that.
Yeah. Well, there's a guy called Ray who's asking David a specific question. Can England win without expats? And he's calling it coal pack players.
Well, coal pack players no longer exist, you can tell him, as a result of non-cricket decisions to come out of Europe. And it was a European decision, Matt. So in all the county teams, people who've had coal pack players have had to reverse that decision.
Right.
Expats, and you can't stop people coming, families
and migrating,
and emigrating and the like. No, I wouldn't be as confrontational as that. I think the guys who play for England are very proud to play for England. Adam was brought up in Australia, but he was proud to wear that shirt the same as anybody else born in Bristol. So it's whether we got the best 11 players, and I'm very excited by that because that's the area I now work in, under 19s and things like that. So the areas that I've seen people progress, like the Ollie Popes, the Ben Folks, they've all gone through the same procedures as Shaw, Gill. I saw them. I can remember sitting at the not the Wankhede Stadium. What is the other one? Brabourne. Sitting next to Raoul Dravid, because he was in charge and still is, I think, at the under-19. So just a wonderful, wonderful man. And so we're watching the game, and he said, "Actually, Dave, you need to know." And then, because the first time I've ever been to the Brabourne Stadium, I'll give you a quiz. Which non-Indian has scored the most runs on this ground in Test match cricket? So I had a few guesses and whatever. He said, "Well, you're going round and round and round. Go on to the European floor, because I think it's split into certain floors of the pavilion. And there's a big picture of your uncle. He has scored more runs on this ground than any other non-Indian." Oh, sorry, I didn't know that. So we were then watching the cricket, and Prithvi Shaw.
He's frozen. Keep talking, that was just a frozen. You're frozen.
Yeah, and
you're right. You're on now.
And he asked me, well, he can play, this guy. But the next guy is somebody who I think this his opinion in terms is an outstanding player. He wasn't trying to choose to bat in slightly different ways, but it just showed the amount of talent they had, and they weren't the only two. It was an enlightening experience, part of history, and that's one thing.
Can you tell the viewers about your uncle a bit more? Do we need to hear about your?
Sorry,
some people may not know who your uncle is.
Oh yeah, right. My uncle Tom Graydon. He scored 38 class hundreds. Wow. He played for England. Slightly checkered career, because you'll find this. Well, your listeners will be scratching their heads that he counties from Gloucestershire to Worcester, and if you moved to, you actually had to. You were removed from the game for a year. Play cricket for 12 months and stand up in a court of law. So he had a break in it, and actually came back as 40 years to his career. But he was in the same era as Cowdrey, Barrington, Dexter, Peter May. They were all competing for batting positions. He was, and interesting enough, because I know that Smokes used to use a heavy bat. He batted with a 2-pound, 2-ounce bat for the whole of his career. Now, if you try to get somebody to make you a 2-pound, 2-ounce bat now, just split in two. So. Yeah.
Amazing.
Interesting. So, yeah, he played for a long time, and he was actually Basil D'Oliveira's best friend, because they played in the same team together. And probably is the only person, other than his immediate family, who knew how old Basil D'Oliveira was.
The real
there was always debated that he might have been a little bit older than actually he was letting on. So. But he was also going to watch me play, just little bits of encouragement. So if you ever get to Worcester, Norman, then the Graham Hick Pavilion, there's a whole cabinet of stuff that belongs to my Uncle Tom. So
I'll have to do that.
For a bloke who scored that many runs, he's and there are lots of people like that too. They're the most unassuming people that you think that, Graham Gooch, who would be known to Adam really well, and I don't know whether you've met him, Norman. Given his record, he is one of the most unassuming blokes you'll ever wish to meet. When he refers to 3-3-3, he often says, "Well, they just weren't a very good attack." And Kieran Morey dropped me when I was about 15.
Well, it's saying here.
How is he not knighted? Graham Gooch should be a sir.
I know it should be. It'll happen, Smokes. Don't worry.
Yeah, why hasn't that? That's an unusual one. So your uncle also He played 732 first-class matches.
He liked playing.
Oh my God!
They used to have tours. Norman, they used to have world tours during the winter. He got 1,000 runs on a world tour. That's no wonder he got as many runs at the Brabourne Stadium. He was playing for a collection of teams.
Amazing. And he scored, what, 122 hundreds, 233 50s. That's just ridiculous. Incredible.
But didn't get any runs against Australia. So the Australians didn't think he could play. If you went to the West Indies, they called him King Tom there because he got double hundreds, the whole lot.
Well, it was funny that era when the Lily Thompson era, when you have like batters like even Amos and Fletcher, and there were a number of players that played against us then they never really seemed to score runs against us that I remember seeing. Yet they had incredible overseas records elsewhere, or more so county records or English records. It is intriguing.
One of the great sights, and I don't want to hog this away from Smokes, but one of the grounds, people ask me, what city did you like going to in Australia? And sadly, other than the tour that I went with Smokes and a couple of one-day tours, didn't go there very often. And another unknown fact, if you went to the border fields at Queensland, I think one of their function rooms, they've got sort of around the top of the building is a head and shoulders everybody who's played for Queensland. That actually includes a picture of T.W. Graveney up there.
I just noticed that he played for Queensland.
Yeah, he played for Queensland. Right. And I think it's one of the major players. He went there to retire. And then I think one of the major players at that time got injured. And they said, would you come and play? He ended up playing for 3 years, I think, which was brought to an end when they played on a. Is it Clem Jones? Who's the mayor that owned the grounds, basically? Yeah. And they were going for the Queensland or going for the Sheffield Shield or whatever. And for some apparent reason, and it's never really been proven one way or other, that they were losing the game, and suddenly it turned up the morning of the third day or whatever, and the wicket suddenly had they'd had a 22-yard thunderstorm.
That happens a lot.
22 yard.
That happens a lot.
He then batted, and his arm was broken, and then he then retired permanently by then an unknown Western Australian fast bowler called DK Lilly. So that was in the early 70s. So.
Well, I mean, I must just have a look at your numbers too. I've just looked at your numbers. Your first class, you took 981 first class wickets.
Why did you stop, Grav?
I'll tell you why I stopped is that the guy that you would have played with, James Boyling, moved from Surrey to Durham.
He didn't take your spot.
No, he did.
No, he did not. 981.
Yeah, I didn't carry on because I must have dropped 19 caught and bowled somewhere.
I mean, have there been many first-class bowls that took 1,000 wickets?
Oh yeah, spin bowlers. I know. Martin Bignell must have been quite close to 1,000 wickets, wouldn't he?
Martin Bignell got 1,200, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and Norman, he got 1,200, and he was injured most of the time.
Yeah.
But that's pretty bloody impressive.
He was our master plan to get Graham Smith out.
All right.
Martin Bignell.
Glenn Chappell nearly got 1,000. He got 90s.
Robert Croft got 1,000.
Did he get 1,000, Crofty?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, I suppose.
That's pretty impressive. Come on.
I wouldn't end up like Malcolm Nash, who played for Glamorgan. The guy got hit for 6 sixes by Sobers. He ended up with 998. So,
But you don't need the 1,000 because you remembered for the 6 sixes, so you don't need to get the 1,000.
Right. Yeah, nobody would care how many wickets he took. That's for sure. After that, okay.
Norman, I might have to peel off in a minute. If that's
all right. So just quickly before you go, we'll just quickly get you to say what's your thoughts? 5 T20s. What do you think the results will be? What in that? England's favourite?
I would actually. I would. I think England will win, and I think England will win by 3-2.
Okay. And the 3 ODIs?
Even 3-2 or even 4-1.
Okay, so you're quite confident they're going to win handsomely then?
I think they've played some outstanding T20 cricket, I must admit. So,
For sure.
and I think they've got a few guys they've been carrying around who are just champing at the bit to play. So,
for sure. Adam, what's your thoughts?
So I'm going to go 3-2 to England in the T20s. And I think India are going to win the one-day internationals 2-1.
Okay. Surprisingly, I actually...
regrettably, Smoke's probably right about the 50-over game. I just see the resources of the Owen Morgan will get these lads really focused to play T20 cricket. And there is some really exciting talent out there.
Yeah, David Malan, #1 T20 batsman in the world.
Yeah.
Owen Morgan himself, Jason Roy, some fantastic.
I'll get a brown hat in there. No, he's very good, Jason.
Yeah, all right. Then, so you've got to go, David. I appreciate that. I appreciate your time. It's been fantastic. And most important to me is that you two were able to get together for this session. I thought that meant a lot. Both
Thank you.
Guys,
thank you for giving us the opportunity. Smoke, let's not make it as long.
No, it's great to see you again, Graf. Always good.
I'll get you both.
Give my best to your dad.
Will do, mate.
All right, David. All right, David.
Take care. Bye.
Bye, David. So, Adam, I do. Chris Vernon, would you believe, has been messaging me saying he wanted to come on, but he's that distraught that he's not on today.
If
just quickly,
FOMO, fear of missing out. Old Chris Vernon, he's dominated the show with his predictions throughout the whole series, and then the one time he can't get on there, he's
not happy. Well, he was on last night, for God's sake, and the night before. So the thing is, though, from your perspective, you're coaching at the moment. The season, how many more games have you got left at the state level?
Not too many. We can sort of come to the end of the Shield season. We're in the middle of an epic game versus Western Australia at the moment. Very high scoring game. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. But it's just it's an interesting run into the end of the season.
But you've got a full complement of players, haven't you? Pretty much all the players are there.
Everybody, everybody. We have some injuries, but as far as international call-ups are concerned, we've got a full complement there. Okay. I mean, Mitchell Swepson's got a fracture in his neck, a stress fracture in his neck. So
how do you get that?
I guess bowling. I think it's something to do with, I don't know. I mean, I had stress fractures in my neck, but it was from watching the ball sailing back over my head.
But I mean, this is what gets me when these sort of injuries happen. A stress fracture of the neck. Come on, I mean, a high performance coach has a role to play there. I know, but gee, I don't know how. I still can't. I can't believe how that happens. It just bewilders me a little bit. I don't know. Because he's not. You're talking about a bowler that's bowling spin, correct?
Yeah, he's bowling spin. But the spin, but he's a leg spinner, and they put a lot of energy in the ball. I mean, it's not. He puts a lot of work on the ball, a lot of side spin. So, whilst he's probably not quite as putting as much into it as the fast bowlers, he's and because of the amount of overs he's bowling, probably. And effort, probably 75% effort to what a quick bowler puts in, and then just repeating it over and over and over. That's a stress injury on the neck. It's just a repetition injury. So he would have had no knowledge of it. He would have just suddenly started to get pain, or would it have been a gradual thing? I probably maybe started off gradual, but probably thought it was just. I'm not sure how it came about. But I mean, I guess that I wouldn't think it'd just be.
Like a snap,
no. It's not like getting a broken neck. I mean, it's a stress fracture, so I think it's like getting a fork and you just bend it over and over, and then eventually it becomes weak. So I don't know. I mean, the one thing I do notice. I mean, I've been out of the game since 2004, so 16 years since I played. The difference in athleticism with these players and the speed at which they have to do things, the training. Players can get injured training because the training is so intense.
Well, that's my question. Why doesn't common sense prevail? And let them go and play golf, or just relax, get their mind off, even physically get their mind off, and come back fresh. I just don't get it.
Well, the thing is, if you've got a payoff where if they do that, then they're not as fit or as strong as the players on the other side. So everyone's sort of pushing the boundaries of. It's like a car, isn't it? It's like a Formula One car. They're trying to make them faster and faster and faster. But then there comes a point where if they're so fast, if they crash, you're going to die. So
exactly.
It's and that's kind of what's happening. They're making the bowlers fast. The bowlers are bowling so fast, and spinners are spinning it so hard, and batsmen are hitting it so hard. This is from their strength and conditioning. If they don't do that, they won't be able to compete. So you've got to try and balance up the recovery, but they have to have that strength and conditioning. Like back in my day when I was playing, I would probably be I'd be the fittest player on our side considerably. I probably wouldn't be in the top 20 in the Queensland Ball. It's like the amount they train and how hard they train it's unbelievable. So
there's got to be a happy balance here. I'm not seeing that balance. That's just my thoughts. Okay, before, because Chris is not coming on, so he's not coming on. It's funny, we're meant to have International Women's Day tomorrow. I'm going to have all the women on tomorrow because they all couldn't make it. They've got other engagements. So just quickly, there's a lot of comments being made about the Australian teams, whether it be the team playing at the moment in the T20s or what have you. Do you think there's a decline happening in Australia? I know you really can't comment too much because you're involved with the coaching of the Queensland side. But is there a concern out there, or is there no concern?
I'll give you an honest answer, regardless of whether I'm with Queensland or not. I don't think there's a decline in Australian cricket. They lost the tough series against India, a very fine opponents, as we were just discussing before. Yeah. India's team bowling is up there. I think if they came out and played again the next summer, it could be in 6 months in international cricket these days is a lifetime. Things can change around so much. The talent's there. I think they're one or two batsmen away from being a dominant side like they were throughout the 90s or 2000s. They've got Warner, Smith, Labuschagne. That's a good backbone of a back lineup. They're very fine players. And then their pace bowling attacks, as good as any attack in the world. Stark, Hazelwood, Cummins, and then add Chuck and Nathan Lyon, Australia's second best ever spinner. And Tim Payne's, a fine gloveman. So that's a good backbone of a side to. I think the panic would probably be coming from the public rather than from within. I feel like Australia's building towards a great era. I also feel India is building towards a great era.
Right. Yeah.
I think there's some weak sides in international cricket. Not weak, but weaker sides. Sri Lanka aren't playing particularly well at the moment. England, they're also building, but probably I feel like they're a little bit behind Australia. But I think Australia's well placed to be up there in the top 2 or 3 sides in the world. I mean, they would have to be. I don't know if they're actually ranked there, but they would, in my mind, they would still be in the top 3 sides in the world.
Okay. What I'm alluding to, like in rugby, the grassroots rugby fell apart. Rugby in Australia suffered accordingly. Australia's grassroots, I'm talking now about the Sheffield Shield. We luckily have that on now because the Australian team didn't tour South Africa as much, so a lot of the players were able to play that. That's what I think they've got to try and work out. They've got to work out a balance between the BBL and Sheffield Shield, and they haven't got that right. They've been lucky because, as I said, the series is off, but there's something missing there. And the grassroots, to me, is more and more Shield cricket. I think that's what they need to have more of, or more of that version.
And it's a similar balance throughout the world. I mean, I know you're Australian and you're patriotic, and you're probably more aware of what's going on in Australia than in other places. But this is a sort of problem which has been going on in England since when I was playing, where we're playing too much one-day cricket, and it's not preparing our Test cricketers for Test cricket. etc., etc. So I think that's, and then now add T20 in there, and then you've got the lure of the finances. I mean, it's a really brings in the money, doesn't it? So then you're balancing up, bringing in money, grassroots cricket, preparing sides for Test match cricket. It's a real delicate balance.
True.
No,
but it's still. I think that Australia is better for what we're doing at the moment. The Sheffield Shield match we're having now is a bit of a bonus. Not having that South Africa tour is actually a bit of a bonus. But now they get a bit of our cricket back in order. All right, Adam, thank you very much. Now, as I was saying, viewers, to some of you in other episodes, we're eventually going to move into the T20 and ODI series, and I'm going to be certainly part of the IPL with a few other people that we've got online. But in particular, the likes of an Adam will be a part of both what we do on this platform and other Indian platforms such as Extra Time and various Sports Today, whatever the groups are. We're going to move on to that too, because they're seeing the value of an Adam, even though he's not physically in England. I think it's incredible how insightful someone like Adam can be sitting on the Gold Coast. And I think that's going to continue. So look forward to seeing the likes of Adam more overseas. Sorry, here, but overseas events in the future. So thanks for your time, Adam. I really appreciate it. We've got Adam at Adam Hollyoak. And that's your Twitter handle and your
Instagram.
And Instagram.
Both, yeah.
Both. So we can catch him on that as well. And how's your YouTube channel? Is your son helping you out with that?
Well, my son did. He got it set up, but we're struggling for content at the moment. We're going to start. I'm going to start doing some interviews with players like Joe Burns and Marnus Labuschagne and Michael Neese.
Perfect.
Mark Steckety, who's just been selected for Australia. Unfortunately, not going to South Africa, but so I'm going to do some one-on-one interviews with them and some analysis into their technique. So that might be some fun stuff to look out for.
Well, Len Pascoe's got his running now. Jeff's got his running. Doug Walters has got theirs. All three of them are running. They're getting. Len has a stock of old videos of them playing, and he's starting to pump it onto their airway. So, Adam, it's your turn now. Viewers, we want Adam to have his own YouTube channel. His son will be a major help him, of course, because Adam's not very technically au fait, I'm sure. The reality is that Adam has a plethora of things he can do. He can talk to Australian players, some of his old English mates. He could have had the opportunity of talking to Matthew Hoggart over there at the World Series. But in future, you'll be seeing a lot of the work will actually be on Adam's platform as well, and we'll promote that so we can grow not only my channel, but Adam's, Len's, Jeff's, and Doug's as well, as they deserve it. So thank you very much for your time tonight, Adam. And obviously, David, was great to marry up with you. So we'll see you again soon, Adam. Hopefully, we'll get your expertise.
No problems, Norman. Cheers, mate.
All right. So all the best. This is Eyes on Cricket with Norman Koch. Thanks for saying goodbye. View, like, and share. Make sure you make your comments as you do, and don't forget to subscribe and make this channel grow, and we'll help the others grow as well. So good night from me today. Well, thanks again for Adam and Dave for joining us. Hope you enjoyed it. Good night.